Isn't it beautiful?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. We were driving in today and just looking at it all. That's all I can say. You know, it's not like we were just looking at the sky or we were just looking at the mountains or we were just looking at the things that are blooming that I'll bet you anything were planted by birds. And it's all just, oh, it's all just delicious. Oh, I love that word. Oh, it's all just delicious. Whew. Okay, so I didn't tell you in advance to fasten your seatbelts, but maybe that's why you're all sitting over here. is to give this side of the room the most ballast. Bren,
Yes.
I have to tell you, that was the most perfect choice of a reading, invocation, affirmation that you could have chosen for today out of all of the choices that are available.
Yay.
It was amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better lead-in. You know, a lot of oh, by the way, I'm Rev Ann Rea.
Yeah.
You all know that. And the only reason that matters is because I get to be the playmate of all of you.
That's great.
I get to hang with you and create wonderful things and take this community into the awareness of the world in all the ways that that can happen. So the reason I mentioned seatbelts is because for the next little bit, we're going to talk about money. And today we're talking about money mythology. And you know what? There's a lot of it. There are a lot of myths about money. Do you know that the value of money, regardless of where you are in the world, is all made up?
Yes.
It's totally a human idea that it has value at all, or it doesn't have a lot more value. It's totally a human idea. Because originally it was chickens and eggs and cows and milk and butter and those kinds of necessities that people traded, that people bartered, right, with each other, because this one had chickens and this one had cows and this one had a garden full of amazing vegetables, and so they bartered, and at some point in time, that bartering, which was really based on community. It was really based on community. It had nothing to do with monetary value. In fact, I would venture to say pretty convincingly that monetary value never crossed anybody's mind. It was about sharing what we had and sharing it gladly. Sharing it gladly. And entire communities lived this way for a very long time and lived this way happily. Now, as our understanding of the world grew, because I always like to give the history of things. As our understanding of the world grew and we started to have the experience, not we, but others who were here, started to have the experience of people from other cultures, then it became beads and textiles and pottery. That they were already trading amongst themselves, but the trade went broader, right? Fur pelts, animal pelts, all trade. No cash involved. So at some point, somebody decided, probably somebody who didn't have chickens or pelts or hamsters or whatever, that there had to be a way of trading that they could use. This is what I'm making up. This is not Google. There had to be a way of trading that they could use with people who had goods that they wanted, that they had nothing to trade for or trade with. Hence, money. Since then, this was a while back. Since then, money has taken on all kinds of meaning. Some of us may have grown up with generational stories and ideas and beliefs about people who had money and people who didn't. People who had money may have been seen as suspect. You know them. They live in the rich part of town. They have a big house. They have lots of things. I don't know about them. And people who didn't have money, where do you think the whole thing about the other side of the tracks came from? Because the tracks were a very real part of life in those days. Train travel was pretty much it, unless you wanted to ride a horse for a long time or walk. That was it. So the other side of the tracks became a line of demarcation at first between the have and the have-nots. And isn't it interesting that the whole idea of the have and the have-nots is a human idea? Just because someone has more stuff than someone else became a measure of whatever it became a measure of. In some opinions, it became a measure of good. It became a measure of something that you sought to have. And in other ways of viewing it, in other perspectives, it became a measure of suspicion and probably bad. Because how did they get there? How did, and the all of these old sayings that might come to mind, like being born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Now, there's no baby who has ever lived on this planet who will ever live who is born with a silver spoon in its mouth. Man, that would be, I don't even want to think about it. But what it meant was that this was a child that was never going to have to worry about anything because their family, or at least their parents, had it all. And of course, the other side of the tracks shifted in definition as well, because there was the poor side of town and the rich side of town. No middle class side of town, even though that made up most of the town. But no middle class side of town. It was either you had it or you didn't have it. And then the line of demarcation was about race. It was about culture. It was about what you believed. It was about what faith you practiced. Isn't it interesting? In sort of an icky way, that all of these things have come through our own minds as truth. I'm guessing that there was someone along the way, along all of these ways that I have described, who went, really? What makes you so sure that the people who happen to live on the other side of the railroad tracks don't have anything? What makes you so sure that the people who have a lot of money or have a lot of things are happy? Even today, I would ask that question. And as Bren said in what she shared with us this morning, happiness is a choice. Happiness is a choice. So as we look at other mythologies around money, it's very interesting to bring the whole experience more into what is relatively contemporary for all of us, and look at the other phrases that became common. Dirt poor, right? Can't afford it. Broke. Fixed income. So let's talk about fixed income. Because whether it is a salary that we're receiving from an employer or Social Security, which I hope we're all doing everything we can to protect, because those who are counting on Social Security, who are behind us, have worked just as hard as we did to get there. So we can see how the idea develops that that is our source. So let's talk a minute about source. There's one life. It is all life. It is all that we are. It is all that everything is, ever was, ever will be. Everything that exists, animate or inanimate, reflects that life. It isn't just human beings. We may think that we are the superior ones. I don't know. I happen to know Jackie's Dobermans. I don't know that we're the superior ones. I happen to know Misty, wherever she is right now. I don't know that we're the superior ones. You know, Patty and Gilbert and Marissa have this cat, and she knows the minute I walk in the house.
Yes, she does.
And it's only once a week. It's not like we've hung out. You know, we haven't had a few drinks. We haven't, we haven't hung out. But she knows the minute I walk in the house, and she comes in having a lot to say. So much for superiority. Back to fixed income. Source. One life, one power, one presence, all life, our life, everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, is that life, and that life is everything. So you could take all of those words that I just said, and you could substitute one word. And you could say there is one life and it is source. Because if it is all, it is the source of all. Not only in terms of provision, which is, by the way, assured. But I'll get to more of that in a minute. It is an ideal to grasp, to wrap our minds around, that even though we may get checks from this one and that one, or Patty may be paid to do some of her beautiful tailoring, we may get income from all kinds of various places. We may get gifts from various places, income is not just about money. But I want to stick with my source right now. So we can easily get confused, just like we have along all these generations. We can easily get confused about our source. And we can imagine that our source is Social Security. Well, if by some chance, and it's okay, don't anybody get nervous, I'm not setting anything in motion here. I'm just asking us to look with bigger eyes and with a bigger perspective. If by some chance Social Security changes, what happened to our source then? If by some chance, for those of us who have paying jobs, if by some chance our company downsizes, I hate that expression, and we no longer have the job we had, or we no longer have the contract we had, or we no longer have the position that we had, or we no longer have a job, all of which is possible. That was our source in our mind. Maybe. You can see from my illustrations that some of these ideas about what our source is were confused about an avenue.
Right.
Because all of these things, whether it's Social Security or a job that we have, or beautiful tailoring that we do, or lovely writing that we do and books that we sell, whatever it is, those are all avenues.
Right.
Eggs and chickens and cows and milk and butter were all avenues.
Yes.
It hasn't changed. They're all avenues through which provision flows. And provision flows. Now this is an interesting part here, because going back to the one life, one power, one us, one all thing that I said. As there is only one, and every single one of us, this is going to come up in the class that I'm going to be presenting over the next few weeks. Every single one, we all have our 100%.
Yes.
Now, I know about the 1%, and I know about the 5%, and I know about the however many percent. Those are statistics that are about the human condition.
Yes.
I'm talking about unconditional. I'm talking about something that exists no matter what. Now, if we are the arms and legs and voices of this one, each in our own individual way, it better keep taking care of itself,
Right.
which is what it does. It takes care of itself as us. But it can only do for us what it can do through us.
Right.
So while this life, I can see it happening before my very eyes, is pushing pushing to get this crud out of Stephen's body right now so his wholeness can be revealed.
Sorry for the sound effects.
That's all right.
Perfect timing. It's clearing up.
It's releasing. When Ernest Holmes says, at the end of the Science of Mind book, one of my very favorite affirmations of his, maybe arguably my favorite. Whatever I need, whenever I need it, will always be
At hand.
at hand. How in the world can he say that and not be a fool? How can he guarantee that and not be a fool? Because he trusted in a higher idea. He trusted in a principle that serves all life the same. It wasn't about background. It wasn't about foreground. It wasn't about college. It wasn't about your relationship with any relatives. I bless them all anyway. It wasn't about any of that. It was about trusting in a higher principle.
Yes.
And that higher principle provides for itself by means of us. When we are standing there with our foot on the hose, we do have to say yes. We do have to make room for that flow. We do have to accept that flow. We do have to be willing to take in that flow, enjoy it, share it, and live with it.
Yes, indeed.
It doesn't happen, I don't like to talk about what we can't do, but right now I'm going to do that. We cannot stand around and wait for that flow to show up the way we'd like it to,
That's right.
in the amount we'd like it to, or the thing we'd like it to, or the person we'd like it to. We cannot wait for it to show up as that and then be in gratitude and appreciation.
Right.
Because if we're going to wait, we're going to wait a long time.
That's right.
So what do we do in the meantime?
Action. Take action.
As
Rita.
wise one, Rita, I know who you are. Wise woman, Rita, said, we take action.
Yes.
What does that mean? What if we don't have any idea what to do? All we have to do is take one step
Right.
in the direction of what it is that we are affirming.
Right.
And it may not be that. It may not be taking one step in the direction of what we're affirming. It may be taking one step in preparation.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you what, many of us are not prepared for what we're asking for.
That's right.
We have not made our lives big enough, our minds big enough, our perspective big enough to handle what we're asking for.
That's right.
And fortunately, Source knows. And it will only give us what it can give through us. And that requires room. That requires our yes. That requires our availability. That requires our allowing. Why not prosper now? My question is, why not? Because if not now, when? Why not change our minds about money, just like we can change our minds about anything else, and put it in its place in terms of our participation? Because there really is something to this giving and receiving business. And part of the receiving is allowing. Part of the receiving is being ready. Part of the receiving is being prepared. Part of the receiving is opening up our lives to the point where it can actually handle what it is that we are inviting into it.
Right.
And that may take some big changes. Because we may think, well, you know, everything's been okay so far. You know, I'm moseying along pretty well and managing. Ooh, I'm managing. How would you like to not be managing? How would you like the flow of your life to be so easy, so sweet, so delicious, that there would be no feeling of the need to manage? To be able to trust ourselves enough to handle this life that we are calling forward, to handle the opportunity to be the reflection of all that is that we are, to handle all of it with ease and grace and joy and constant gratitude.
Yeah.
That was our job. Whatever else we do, I am ease and grace and joy and gratitude. That's what I do. That's my job. You know, people ask when they meet you, what do you do? And I want to say, well, what do you do? Because it's not going to tell them anything. It's not going to tell them anything. They aren't asking me who I am. Right? They aren't asking me what I did today that I loved. What a weird question. So, your homework is to come to class.
I guarantee it's worth it.
It's an extra hour.
Bring a snack.
It'll go by like that for 6 weeks. and it's on a love offering basis. So there is no such frickin' thing as I can't afford it.
Amen.
Thank you all for being here this morning, for being with us online, for joining us on Facebook.